All right, and here we are. We're live, and in today's session, we are going to focus on the topic of career clarity strategies. Now, I have it written down here. All this is unscripted, pretty much just bullet points, and just going to share what are some key strategies that will really help people navigate a career change or career transition process. And really, if you're to break down key strategies, there's really a handful that really do work. Okay, the first one, the first strategy is to really focus on the skills over the titles. Now, when we're looking at a job position, oftentimes we get caught up with titles, right? We get caught up with the title of what degree you graduate with. We also get caught up with the title on, the title of the position that you're going for. We also get caught up on the titles of, the position obviously, but also the nature of the work. There's different names that people use for different job content roles that they need to execute. However, at the end of the day, what really matters for a career transition, a career crossroads process is to focus on the skills that you like to use, right? What are the skills that really give you that satisfaction when it comes to figuring out what you want to do, and also in terms of what puts you in a state of flow, and which is that feeling where you can spend very little time spend a lot of time on something, but actually feel like time just breezes by. It puts you in an optimal state where you are striving towards something that's meaningful and that's satisfying. Another thing that you want to do is to, while you focus, take away the focus from the titles to the skills. The next thing you want to do is you really want to focus on the right skills. Now, when we're talking about skills, there's hard skills and soft skills, right? And when we break down hard skills and soft skills are generally defined as technical skills that help you perform on your job, that helps you get the job done. Soft skills, on the other hand, are skills that, help you. It's generally defined as self-management skills or people skills, right? And when you're talking about self-management and people skills, it's about how you get along with the team, how you effectively handle your time, how you meet deadlines, how you communicate, how you present yourself, and so on. So when we're talking about a career crossroads strategies, you really need to know, hey, what are the skills that you like to apply? And when you break it down into a skill development tree, it's kind of like a video game. You do develop different skills, right? When you break into the hard skills and soft skills, the hard skills are what helps you get your foot through the door. It helps you get your job, right? Especially if you are going for an entry level position. Hard skills are what you are essentially getting paid for, and what you do is you keep executing a skill over and over and over again, and that's what gets you paid. Soft skills, on the other hand, at an entry level position is kind of like, it's great to have, but you're generally just working on your thing, so you don't really need to have too many soft skills as long as you can deliver. However, what happens is over time, soft skills are what gets you promoted. So hard skills get you through a door. Soft skills are what gets you promoted. And it gets you promoted because at each step of the corporate ladder, whether you get promoted or not depends on whether people trust you. And why trust is so important is because, well, the higher you go, the higher the stakes are, and the more autonomy you need to have, because you're going to start managing people, you're going to start managing teams, you're going to start, coordinating with your coworkers who are also managers or leaders in the organization. And what happens is they want to be able to trust you. Also, at that point, people with solid and good hard skills, they're plenty. There's a lot of them to choose from, right? All of them, if you're getting considered for a non-entry level job or non-junior position, you're actually climbing. What happens is that, well, all of the hard skills are about the same level. So what's the key differentiator? It's going to be the soft skills. It's going to be whether someone trusts you or not. So being able to really identify and delineate between hard skills and soft skills, and being able to market those effectively is essential for a career crossroads, because when you're at your career crossroads, you really want to be able to identify, okay, what are the skills that I want to be implementing, and do I really have a high ceiling in that role? The next thing you want to do is then look into your personality, because the next personality is essential towards the skills that you naturally are able to apply, right? Well, for hard skills, the ability, for example, introverts are a lot more able to sit down and focus on the task at hand. And hard skills related to introversion would be ones that would include, a dedicated focus on getting something done, such as coding or writing or work that doesn't involve too many people skills and people issues. On the other hand, so introversion is going to be a major part of those hard skills. Now, soft skills then. When we look at the soft skills for personality, different people have different proclivities and leanings in how they want to behave on a daily basis in terms of their work. And so when you're looking at soft skills then, some people are more inclined to be sociable. Some people are more inclined to be open-minded, and they're more like explorers and looking for new things. Some people are more conscientious than others. Some people are much more stronger in their, in terms of being disagreeable and saying no to others who may want to impose their will on them, right? So at the end of the day, personality plays a huge role in terms of the soft skills and the hard skills that you deploy on a daily basis. So when we're talking about career crossroads strategies, then we really need to understand several things, right? What are the skills that you really want to apply on a daily basis? Don't focus on the titles, focus on the skills. The second thing is you really want to focus on the right skills and whatever hard skills and soft skills. And the last thing you really want to focus on is your personality in terms of the personality development, and what are the strengths that you can leverage, and what are the blind spots that you can cover. So in terms of the strengths that you can leverage, right, like I said, if you are introverted, you can focus on very introverted things. If you're looking at, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, if you're very introverted, you can focus on introverted things. At the same time, extroverted activities may drain you. And in that case, then, you probably want to avoid skills that require a lot of extroverted energy, such as going to conferences, such as going to convention centers, such as socializing all the time, networking, and all that stuff. That may be draining for you. And therefore, when it comes down to the career crossroads strategies, skills matters. Hard skills, soft skills. What's your personality, and how do you want to develop it is the next point. How do you want to develop it? At the end of the day, there are some things that are hard to change within yourself. Whether it's when you're talking about, there are some things that are hard to change within yourself. So, for example, if you have a hard time saying no, right? And that's kind of like setting boundaries, saying no is a difficulty that you have. What happens is, well, you don't really want to, like your job may require you to say no sometimes and set stronger boundaries. You don't want to have it hurt you to the degree that you can't do that job anymore. But at the same time, you want to avoid a position that would constantly make you say yes and drain you out just because that's not your strength. So it's about covering your blind spots, but also leveraging your strengths. So if being agreeable is your strength, you want to find a teamwork environment where you really get a sense of belonging, where you really feel like you're part of a team and you're able to contribute on a consistent basis. After you sort all this out, then you really need to find, in terms of a strategy, what is out there in the job market that you can actually apply these things that will make you feel happy, make you feel satisfied. And that's really how we're talking about, when it comes to the crossroads, what kind of jobs make you satisfied, right? And let me know in the comments below. I see some people in the chat right now. Let me know in the comments if what kind of job you're looking for, what kind of job that makes you feel satisfied, job characteristics. And I'm about to wrap up my session, so if you got any questions, we can hop right into the Q&A as well. So start dropping in your questions. I'll be glad to answer whatever questions you may have. in terms of finding your career clarity and so on, right? But at the end of the day, if we're to wrap it up, it really comes down to what skills you have, hard skills, soft skills, what's the personality, and also how you can leverage your strengths and cover your blind spots. And really, at the end of the day, once you have that figured out, just find a job that embodies these skills. Don't go for the title, because the title always shifts. No one, like, when you think about a director, like, what does a director even mean nowadays? Like, seriously, what does a director mean? Director of operations, right? A director of operations may have a whole bunch of different tasks for an individual to do. And if that's not something that, and if those skills aren't something that you like to do, then what that means is, well, even if you get that title, you will be miserable in that title. And that's why when it comes to career search strategies, focus on the skills. Ditch the titles, focus on the skills. Another reason why you want to focus on the skills and ditch the titles is because the world is changing so fast, right? There are new disruptions happening every day. Even with the new COVID vaccines, right? They're all based on new technology. It's going to phase out a lot of old jobs. And that's why you don't want to marry yourself to a title, because the moment you marry yourself to a title, what happens if that job gets phased out, right? Instead, you want to focus on skills. And when we're talking about skills, we really want to focus on broad skills rather than narrow skills, because narrow skills are skills that basically, narrow skills are easily replaced. It's just repetitive work that robots can simply replace and so on. And so that's something you want to focus on. All right, we got a question now. Omer Yang asked a question. If I'm in a role that doesn't allow me to engage with customers, how should I practice looking in the mirror? Okay, Omer. Great question. But I need to ask a clarifying question if I'm to answer it, right? If you are to, what kind of role are you looking for? Do you want to engage with customers? Is that something you want to do? Let me know in the comments. And if any other viewers have any questions, just drop it in the comments below, right? I'll be glad to answer. But is this something you want to do? Engage with customers? And just a heads up, there is a slight lag in terms of the comments and in terms of my response. There's about a 10-second lag. So drop the question in. I will see it eventually, all right? But I'm gonna keep answering that question as we go. There are ways to practice. There are right ways to practice and there are wrong ways to practice. The best thing to do when you work with a customer, when you want to improve your people skills, is what I call personality hacking. And personality hacking is super effective because everyone, like I said before in this talk, everyone's got their own unique personality. And what you really want to do is you want to resonate with that personality. You want to be able to click with someone. And to click with someone, the best way to do it is to mirror them. So if we are in this kind of chat environment, right, and Omar just elaborated, I want to make sure I am confident and when I respond with coworkers and customers, right? If you want to be confident when you are responding with coworkers and customers, what you want to do is to build those soft skills. With personality hacking, the best thing to do is to understand their big 5 personality traits, right? And if you want to take a free big 5 personality traits test, there's one in the comments, in the details below. You can definitely check that out. But when you want to connect with people, the best thing you want to do is mirror them. So, for example, if that person speaks at a very fast pace, like if I'm speaking at the pace I'm speaking at right now, I speak at a relatively breakneck speed, right? You want to speak faster to match them, to match that energy. If that person is an introvert and they speak quietly and they don't really look at you when they talk, like be very introverted, then you want to match that as well. Of course, you gotta stay true to yourself, but the best way to connect with people at a subconscious level is to mirror everything you do. So if someone's talking, right, and this works for like whether it's your coworkers, whether it's a girl, whether it's like your parents or whatnot, like if you want to connect with someone, that person's like arms crossed, you cross your arms as well. If that person leans back, you lean back as well. If that person picks up in their speed and their energy, you pick up in your speed and your energy. That is probably the best way to connect with anybody. Another thing that I would say is super important is to let people talk, right? Let people talk. When people are talking, they will love you. So I've been in social events where I just hop in and I talk with people, and it's like, yo, what's up, man? I haven't seen you in a while. How you're doing, right? And then this person just starts talking. This like, and when a person, and one of this is more like a societal problem. A lot of people nowadays, they don't get talked to a lot. Like there's not a lot of social relationships going, and no one's out there to listen to them. So when you are willing to listen and you're willing to sit down and let someone talk for like 30, 10 minutes straight, and all you gotta do is ask questions, they will love you. They will like you a lot because they will perceive you as the listener. So if you're willing to do that, it's definitely one of the best ways for someone to like you. And in that case, you don't even have to worry about confidence, because confidence is about projecting yourself and like, hey, I'm confident, right? But you don't actually need to project confidence. All you gotta do is be curious, ask good questions, and mirror them so that you're like, oh wow, this guy's mirroring my energy. This guy is finding my conversation to be interesting, and I'm glad to talk to them, and I'm going to tell them more. And before you know it, anyone who's willing to tell you stuff and willing to confide in you, they definitely like you. And if you guys got any other questions, just drop it in the comment box below. I'll be glad to answer it. They always lead to interesting conversations. And there's also a 10-second lag, just a heads up, right? If I don't get to your question immediately, right? You need to be okay with silence. And I tend to talk. I assume you tend to talk too much. All right. So, yeah, if you tend to talk too much, then one of the things I would say is be very mindful about the conversation process. Let them talk. Ask a question. And one of the best things I can do, and I was just working with someone on this earlier, right? This book. Amazing book, Never Split the Difference, right? By Chris Voss. One of the techniques that he teaches in that book is repeat the last few words. If you don't know what to say, literally all you gotta do is just repeat the last few words. It's like, so for example, if someone's like, oh, this weekend I had a great time, I went to a party, and then all you have to say is, a party? And it's like, yeah, I went to a party, I went to do this, and then I hung out with my buddies, Chris and Jeff, and then Jennifer came, and then we all had drank, and then you said drank? You drank? And then yeah, we drank vodka, we drank whatever, had a round of beers and so on. And then you of course you follow up with like beers, right? Now of course don't do it in a way that's like so obvious and creepy. Like if I'm telling it to you right now, you already know about like this is what I'm doing. But 9 out of 10 times, if you're out there and you're talking with someone and all you do is repeat the last 2 to 3 words of what they're saying, they're gonna keep talking. It's like when you ask that question, they're gonna keep spilling everything out. And the reason why you find it in this book is because, well, you want people to slip up and give up information so that you can negotiate better terms for yourself, right? So that's one thing that you definitely would want to do. All right, next question by Ahmed. I hope that answers the question, right, Omar? Feel free to drop more questions if you want, and anybody else. Hey, Ahmed, good to see you back. What kind of personality does a person need to have a job in sales? All right, every job in sales is slightly different. The sales world is very broad. There is not a single sales perfect personality. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the ideal personality for a sales position would typically be the traditional sales personality. And it would be, if we're following the acronym OCEAN, right? OCEAN stands for openness to experience. C stands for conscientiousness. E for extroversion. A for agreeableness. N for neuroticism. The best personality for a salesperson would be someone who is high in openness. You're welcome, Omar. Someone who is high in openness, because when you are open-minded, you are always thinking of new ways to tackle a problem, right? C stands for conscientiousness, and you want to be very conscientious because during the sales process, there's actually a lot of things you got to do. There's follow-up, there's emails, there's a CRM, customer relationship management software. And then there's like the invoicing, and then just collection and so on if you need to do collection, right? So during the sales process, there's a lot of things that you need to be very conscientious with, because if you miss a follow-up email, that may mean the sale's gone, right? And that at the end of that affects your bottom line. But next thing that you need to do is you need to be extroverted, right? An extrovert typically does better in sales because extroverts have a higher energy level. Now, at the same time, you have to do what I was just telling Omar, right? You have to be a good listener. You got to be empathetic, and you got to really have a good script down. For salespeople, they typically have a script, and you have a good, strong script down so that you're able to tease out the questions and guide the person towards a natural conclusion, right? So that's extroversion. Agreeableness. Salespeople need to be disagreeable. If you're too agreeable, what happens is you help a lot of people, but you also help them economically and financially, which means you charge less than you should. So salespeople need to be disagreeable. They need to hold the line and say, this is what my service or my item is worth, and it is what it is, right? You also need to be somewhat aggressive in terms of getting that. And sometimes you need to be pushy, right? I've had situations where, like when I worked in sales before, I've had situations where I had to really, push that person. That person was about to buy. Like, they're about to buy. They only need a nudge or two or three, right? And you have to be persistent in giving that extra nudge without being overboard and aggressive and, rude. But at the same time, you have to be persistent. So you have to be disagreeable as well. The last personality trait is neuroticism. The best salespeople tend to be low in neuroticism. At the same time, they're somewhat responsive as well, right? So they're not exact. So because one of the things that you have to deal with sales is you got to deal with rejection like all the time. I don't know a salesperson that has not dealt with rejection before. The average sales closing rate nowadays, if you close at a 20% rate, it depends on the industry, but if you close at a 20% rate, you're generally considered a good salesperson, right? And so that means 80% of the time you're dealing with rejections. And if that's the case, you have to be low in neuroticism, especially in terms of your bounce back time and in terms of your recovery time of your feelings being hurt. Because sometimes it's as much as, sales is you can't be too detached. Because if you're too detached, the person's like, you're just trying, you just see me as a walking dollar bill, right? But at the same time, so you have to empathize. But once you start empathizing, what happens is you get involved. And if you get emotionally involved, that person decides not buy from you, man, that sucks. That really does suck. And it kind of sometimes, gets to the hurting phase, right? At the hurting stage. And so I would say definitely if you are a kind of person, you're considering a job in sales, make sure you don't stray too far from that personality, especially neuroticism. If you're neurotic, another thing about sales is a sales job means that you typically are not sure if you're gonna it's commission based. And if it's commission based, what that means is you don't know when your next big paycheck is coming, right? If they're giving you a base pay, that's awesome, but a base pay usually is not enough to make yourself live comfortably. So if it's commission based, you don't know when your next paycheck is coming, and that's when the neuroticism, sure, there's the bounce back time in terms of the actual sale, but there's also in terms of if you're sticking in a job, and there are good months and there are bad months, right? Last month I just had an awesome month, but at the same time there are months where it's man, I don't know if this business can keep going, right? And if that's the case, man, sales is tough. And that's the one thing where a lot of people are talking about digital entrepreneurs. How old are you guys, by the way? I'm just curious because a lot of people in their 20s and 30s nowadays are talking about being a solopreneur, digital nomad, doing drop shipping, Amazon, or they all want to be a life coach or something. There's a whole bunch of different jobs that are opening up in the internet space. But what happens is that once you start creating your own business as a digital entrepreneur, as a solopreneur on the online space, what happens is you start doing sales. And because unless you're like a giant tuber, a giant YouTuber who has millions of followers, and you're like PewDiePie, and you're hey, buy my app, and then 10,000 people go buy that app for $1, and then you'll get $10,000. A lot of people aren't. That's not your starting point for the most part. Hey, okay, so Ahmed's 32. So yeah, a lot of people in their 20s and 30s considering online digital entrepreneurship as kind of their solution. But that's another thing that they have to deal with is sales, right? So a lot of people they start their business for example, if you start your business in bakery, right? Omer is 33, transitioning from accounting to software development. Awesome. So if you're doing if you started your business as a baker and you're baking stuff, you would think your work is mostly in baking, right? Or if you started your business on Etsy and all you do is like soap making, for example, my wife is into soap making. What happens is over time you're like, okay, I'm just gonna make soap. That's my work, and I'm gonna be happy because I love making soap. Well, what you realize is that okay, how are people gonna know about your soap? That's marketing. That's online marketing, and then that means you got to design stuff that looks really nice, and then at the same time, there's also the aspect of you got to sell it, right? If especially if you're doing services, you got to sell that service, and so on, and that makes it tough as well because well you got to spend most of your time marketing and selling instead of running your bakery. Ahmed says, I sell product on Amazon on the side for the past 2 years. It runs itself mostly now, but it doesn't make a full-time income. Digital nomad working everywhere. Love to hear your opinion on them, right? Yeah, that's like huge. That's like the huge thing right now for everyone who wants to escape the 9 to 5. I mean, that's like I know all these models because I get these ads run on me on Facebook all the time. Join my program, learn how to earn 10K a month and all that stuff, right? I do have a coach. I did subscribe to one program. I will go with so in terms of the program I work with Sunny Leonard-Duzzi. She runs a YouTube. Like basically that's why I'm doing this YouTube thing, right? That's where I'm at. But in terms of the digital nomad world, it's tough. And I feel like it's almost like a mega online pyramid scheme where and you can really trace the beginning. So Ahmed, when you're asking about the online space, are you asking about selling products or are you talking about service? Right? Because it's fundamentally different. When you're talking about products you can really scale because products are scalable, right? Nowadays the supply chain is a little bit wonky, but for the most part products are scalable, right? And if you have one product on Amazon that really blows up, man, you can really make a killing on it. I'm sure you know that. If you're talking about service though, service involves a lot of selling, one-on-one selling, and it's real tough. And unless you have scale, like you have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube or you're on IG and you have 1 million followers or whatnot, it's really hard to make a business out of that. So that's why when you have guys like Dan Lok or who I'm sure who some people are like he's a relatively bigger YouTuber. He would teach people how to sell high ticket. And why is high ticket attractive? Well, high ticket selling is attractive because if you close, for example, high ticket is anything defined as 1,500 or more, right? 1,000 to 1,500 or more per sales, right? So if you are in your 20s or 30s and you don't have a family to raise and you're closing 2 clients a month, you can live off of that and you can make 3 to 4K a month, and that's a relatively decent side hustle. If you're closing at a 5 people per month, right? That would basically mean you're earning 10K, right? 5K to 10K, and then you times 12 spread across a year, you're in the 60 to 120K mark, right? And that is actually, that is enough for you to escape the 9 to 5. That's why there's so many people online selling high ticket now for services. Now, if you're selling product, which is what you're doing, Ahmed, what that means is that you're probably doing, scaling is a major issue, right? And also getting the word out. Also, for digital nomads, Amazon is great. A few years ago, drop shipping was the main thing, right? Which is compete with Amazon. But nowadays, Amazon seems to have taken over that space. I know a lot of drop shippers who have decided to move on to the Amazon space as well. So, I think it's doable. I think there are digital nomads, and there are people who do make it in the digital nomad life. But for the most part, I think a lot of people, are just, how should I say it? If you're going to be successful in the corporate world, you're probably going to be successful anywhere, right? And that also includes the digital nomad life. If you guys got any other questions, feel free to drop it in a chat. I'll be glad to answer them, all right? There's, and that's where it comes down to. There are those, it's kind of like I was previously a teacher, right? And when I was teaching, I would say there's 3 groups of students. One group of students are those who would be successful in no matter what they do, Like as long as they keep doing what they do, they're going to be fine, right? These are the A+ students who are going to be good anywhere. There are students who would be, I don't want to be mean, but there are some students who are not going to do very well regardless. It's just because they don't have the fundamental skills, or they don't have the discipline, or they don't have the personality, or what's that word? The ability to really do the work. And then there are also those, and then there are those who are in the middle. And that's why, like in the online space where people are teaching others how to build their business and so on, what happens is like the real difference makers are it makes a big difference for those who are going to succeed regardless, right? If you're willing to put in the work in the corporate world, you too will succeed. Now the problem with the corporate world is there's a ceiling, right, in terms of the corporate structure. So there are companies where you literally cannot advance past a certain point. I talked about this last week, right? If you advance in a company and you want to become a manager, you want to become a specialist. You don't like managing people. You want to become a specialist. But the next rung up is a manager role. There's nothing else. Then what happens is, well, you've hit a dead end in that corporate ladder of that company. And you only at that point you only have two choices, right? Either suck it up, become a manager. Actually, you have three choices. Suck it up, become a manager. The other choice is stay where you're at, which is also not ideal because you'll probably get bored eventually. And the third choice is to move somewhere else, right? And that's why a lot of people, if you decide to pursue the online space, digital nomad life, you learn the skills, you learn the ropes. Once you learn the system, it's awesome. And that's why I think a lot of people who fail in the online space, as like whether they're doing running their online tutoring business or online guitar school or online, the online drop shipping, selling products or so on, e-com and so on, they struggle because they lack structure, they lack a system. And that's why it's so important at the very beginning to just build a system. And I could, just going back, right? Several years ago, there's, everyone knows about Tai Lopez and his is it Lamborghini or Ferrari in his garage. And then everyone also knows about like Sam Ovens running that his ads on like consulting.com, teaching people how to be a consultant. And there's also like coaches, people who teach people how to be coaches, and then people who learn how to be a coach, they will then teach other people to be a coach. That's what I'm saying. It's like a pyramid scheme, right? But at the same time, the intellectual the intellectual property world, it's not intellectual property world, but the service industry, right? A lot of it is going online. There are going to be experts who can sell their expertise, and you can always pick and choose. Because some people, I have a friend who's teaching people how to be a vegan, right? I have a friend who teaches people how to lose weight in their 50s. And if you market it that way, like I specialize in helping women lose weight and gain confidence in their 50s, or I specialize in teaching people how to live off a vegan diet, then pretty much, yeah, that's what you specialize in. And there's always going to be someone in the Western world who speaks your language, who comes across your YouTube video or IG or whatever, who's like, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And then bam, if you're able to sell them high ticket for like sell them at the 2 to 4K mark, and you close 2 clients a month, you're able to live comfortably in the West, right? So Omar, that's my situation. Only promotion is to become a supervisor in my agency, and I've been there for 7 years. Damn, man, that's a long time. My question is this though: do you want to be a supervisor? Like, do you want to manage people, or do you want to just keep doing what you do, right? And by the way, what do? You didn't actually tell me what you do. Oh, accounting to software development. So is that why you're moving to software development, Omar? Because a lot of times, a lot of people, like, and Omar, you said you're 33, right? And that's also a good time to transition. There's I actually have a playlist out called Job Hopping in Your 20s and 30s, and talking about the whole job hopping situation. Because job hopping is a problem that a lot of people have, and 20s is totally normal. But what happens is once you get past your 20s, people expect you to be a lot more stable and stick in your job. So a lot of people figure out that they don't want to do what they're doing in their 20s, and then in their early 30s they switch. By the time you switch in your 40s, you actually are considered in like, you know, the midlife stage, mid-career stage. And that's actually much more riskier. In the 20s and 30s, it's still okay to make that switch because you do mostly entry-level stuff. And so making that switch is more natural because there's a lot of transferable skills. The hard skills don't really matter as much. It's a lot of fundamentals that you just are able, as long as you're able to do them, you're going to be fine. Okay, so Ahmed, what is the best way to build a system that works when you are not entirely sure what the right system should look like? So Ahmed, the best way to build a system when you're not exactly sure what it looks like, straight up, that's why a lot of coaches, that's why a lot of these online programs who teach people how to do e-com, dropship, and so on, run Facebook ads. That's why they make money, because they have a system that works and that's proven. As long as you're willing to execute, you're able to do it, right? And so, yeah, what's the best way? The best way is so that you can, you have a good ROI. So, for example, if you decide to run Facebook ads for your Amazon thing, right? Every time you spend $1, you're going to earn $3 back. Then and it's consistent, right? You run those ads, those ads will generate a $3 return for every $1 ad spend you do. And that's when you have that consistency, that's when you're able to really throw that cash down, and then bam, just watch the money come in. Because at that point it becomes predictable, and that's when you're really able to scale, right? And then and at some point, for every ad spend you do, if the money doesn't come back, that's when you should just tail back, scale back a little bit, and then find the next thing you want to sell, right? But once you set up that system, that's why these Amazon guys, dropshippers, e-com guys are able to make so much money. It's because once you have a system, you just replicate that system, and then you're good. What I hear from that space is that consistency is a problem. You always need to look for the next best thing. So when COVID first set in, I have a friend who sold fitness gear, and that went very well for a while until the supply chain was hit bad, and he wasn't able to deliver things on time. People were demanding refunds, and he realized fulfillment was a pain in the butt, and he decided, I'm going to just go on Amazon, right? So there's different things. It's not easy. The system is one thing, but also catching the right time. Fidget spinners was like a major thing several years ago, and I know a lot of dropshippers who did that, but at the end of the day, it didn't work, right? It eventually phased out, and now they have a warehouse full of fidget spinners that they need to get rid of. So there's always these variables as well. No, I don't want to manage people. Yes, transitioned into tech and went back to school. Graduating this month with your second undergrad, stayed in my current job to cash flow my education. So I guess you were basically working a day and doing night school for this, right? And you got your degree in, you have an accounting background, and then you moved to software development. So I assume you went back to school for computer science. Is that what you did? And how's that transitioning doing for you so far, right? Because transitioning to tech is definitely the thing to do. Tech is hot, and at the same time though, did you really need to go back to school? Because I know a lot of people who decide to go on what we call just go on the look up the hashtag on Twitter, 100 days of tech, right? Some people are on Twitter, and then 100 days of tech, and all they do, and it's a community of people who basically want to just work on tech, right? And they want to transfer to tech, and they all community people who exchange ideas on how to improve, upskill in their coding and so on. And as long as you're able to prove and have that portfolio, some people are able to get that position. So was going back to school really necessary? Do you think it's necessary? How have you found it so far, right? I'm just curious on your thought on that. Yeah, but definitely, given the structure of a lot of companies, a lot of times people, I know people who have climbed the corporate ladder to a certain level, and then they're specialists. They're like an architecture, an architect friend, for example. This person is an awesome architect. She can design the most amazing stuff, but because of the structure of her company, what happened was she was forced into a managerial role, and then at the end of the day, she was managing people, and it made her miserable. It so much so that what happened afterwards was they brought a consultant in, worked with her for a bit, and they decided to restructure the company so that it's a small company, number one, but they restructured it so that this individual was only like she reviewed other people's work, but she never had to manage people. They gave the management position to someone who is more I don't want to say more capable, but more their personality is more suited for the position, right? And so that's what they did. Ahmed's asking Omar, what's how much schooling you did? Okay, awesome. So let's see. Software development, but yes, comparable to computer science. Bootcamp would cost as much. Too big of a lifestyle change, financial obligations like a mortgage. Get it? I got it. Yeah, I mean, if that's what works, do you have a target position that you're looking for? Because a lot of times, even in the software development space, there's like a whole bunch of possibilities for you to go into, right? There's there's UX, there's just the hardcore coding in the back end. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do in the software space, right? You were able to finish your undergrad in 2 years because of the transfer of credits from your accounting. Yeah, awesome. I mean, it sounds like everything worked out for you. In terms of in terms of the transition process, and what point are you at right now? Be glad to give you advice on what you could do next. Where are you at right now? And Ahmed, what are you thinking about in terms of like what do you want to do next, right? Do you want to get into sales? Do you want to keep doing keep doing the digital nomad thing? I mean, what do you do even? Let me know. Sorry, I really hate the 10-second lag, but I think it's there to protect people and stuff. Oh, okay. So you are okay with a junior or associate developer. Of course, you're just switching engineer roles, but I am particular about reputable companies. 3 to 6 months to land a job, right? That's typical. 3 to 6 months is typical to land a job. What kind of company are you looking at? Once someone finds their strengths, what would you say would be the best way to build those strengths? Reading books, courses, and so on. So there's several things, right? Like I said at the beginning of this video, there's hard skills and soft skills. And it also depends on the job the job you're in. So depending on the job that you're in right now, or the job that you're gunning for, you need to understand what are the key skills. And when we look at key skills, there's BR and PRs, right? Are the basic requirements. PRs are the preferred requirements, right? These are the things that would be like nice to haves. So if you are going for a position, one of the things is, okay, what are the soft skills I really need to build? And in that case, first you got to figure out what is the right thing, right? And if you don't know what the right thing is, like you might be developing the wrong soft skill or developing the wrong hard skill. So figure out, what is that target position, what you need to develop first, and then develop that. The next thing that I would say is mentors. Mentors would help a lot. Even in my own career journey, I became when I first got started in my career in education, one of the things that I did was I found a mentor, and working with that mentor and just him showing me the ropes and guiding me along the process, and find someone who you look up to, who you want to be in that position 3 to 5 years from now, right? What happens is that what happened was this mentor showed me the ropes, and I became department head. And after how long did it take? 3.5 years. 3.5 years, I secured a department head position, which was I was fresh out of college. 3 years into my role, I was running the department head. In my department, I had people who were in their 50s or 60s who have taught for their whole life, right? So finding a mentor is so important. Do you have a mentor? Anybody here that's worked with a mentor before? Reading books, yeah, you gotta read the right books. There's a lot of garbage literature out there. There's also a lot of good literature, but at the same time, if you read stuff, some of it doesn't really stick, right? So the best thing to do is practice. And so I would always recommend reading and studying, do everything at the same time. at the same time so that you're actually applying what you're learning. And that's what I did for my master's, right? When I was doing my master's, I was teaching at the same time. I was able to take, like, basically took all my master's homework and turned that into my daily practice when I was teaching, right? You don't have a mentor. Yeah, if you don't have a mentor, find somewhere that you want to, find, like, after you set a target for your next position, and, I've talked about the career statement in our last call, but make a career statement, figure out what you want to do, set a target, and then find someone in that industry, in that target industry, and then really focus on that. Omar, company with extra resources like training and development is my goal, 3 to 6 months. Yeah, but like, what field? Like, do you want to like work in a gaming company? Do you want to do like, what is it? You want to do SaaS work, right? Or do you want to do like, other things like traditional operations, traditional software development in companies? Like, what is it? Do you have a specific target? And because when we're talking about company targets, that really matters as well. Because when we're looking at a target, right, we have to look at what's the culture, how long has it been, what's the pace, what's the geography, like where is it based, right? What's the pay grade, whatever pay scales, what's the content of your work, what's the role that you're playing, how big of a company is, whether the company has like 100 people or versus like a multinational that has like thousands of people. That makes a huge difference in terms of how that company is run, your relationships with people. And at the end of the day, working at a small boutique software development company may make you happier than working at a giant company, right? So it really depends. So that's why I'm going to challenge you on that. Like, don't just say like a reputable company with extra resources like training and development is your goal. Be a little bit more specific in terms of what your target is. And the best way to figure that out is to have a target avatar, right? So think of a company that you actually are interested in, research that. So for example, Ubisoft. For example, if you like Assassin's Creed, right? If that's your thing. Ubisoft makes Assassin's Creed. They recently had a hostage situation. But anyways, like if that's the company that you're interested in, then go find companies that are similar to that. And then go find a position that is realistic for you to transfer into, right? To apply into, and usually it would be an entry level position because you're just transitioning into that. And then figure out the characteristics of what you want, and then go for that, right? So other similar companies to Ubisoft, maybe, I don't know off the top of my head, but definitely not Blizzard, right? Well, actually no, it might be Blizzard. Blizzard's a similar size. But yeah, you got to take that in consideration as well. So that would be my advice, right? Don't just say a company. Like, what's the nature of that company? Ahmed, I don't have a job right now. I graduated from chemical engineering. But Travis, I got your question. I'll get to that in a second. I don't have a job right now. I graduated from chemical engineering, but I don't work in chemical engineering much. I just have an ecom business now, and I'm thinking about getting a digital nomad job, maybe a sales position, right? So yeah, there's several things that at play here. I think what you need to do is get that clarity and really hash out that career statement that I was talking about last week. And for those of you who are new here, a career statement is basically a statement that pretty much summarizes what you want in your career, right? What you want in your life, actually. What you want in your life and how your career fits into that. So like some people will prefer stability. Some people prefer the upbeat life. Some people don't mind clocking 80 hours a week. Some people are workaholics, right? Some people want work-life balance so that they can go home and spend it with their kids and so on. So what do you want? Write it down in a statement, one short paragraph, 3 to 4 sentences, summarize everything you want, and then based on that, find a job that fits that characteristic. So I mean, Ahmed, you asked some good questions at the beginning of this call. It's like, what's your personality? What's the personality of a salesperson? And so on. One thing that you may want to do is consider joining an ecom team, right? People who who run ecom business and be part of that team while also building yours on the side. That may be possible. I know a friend who works for a pretty well known. This guy is he's running seven figures in terms of his business online for selling stuff, and and he's building his business on the side as well. All right, so Omar, Fortune 500, ideally financial applications within my state. Yeah, go for it then, all right? But like I said, you should be a little bit more specific. Fortune 500 is big. any department, any specific role, what's the entry level, what's the culture like, right? Even within Fortune 500s, there's a big diversity as well. As a finance major, is there a good personal project I can work on it independently during my free time? Also, do you know any good case competitions to take place for finance and consulting? So right now, I'm assuming you're in school right now, right, Travis? Good personal project, right? Like great question. But that's based on that question alone. I can't really give good advice, because what do you want? Like, how do you define good, right? When what you define as good needs to be aligned with what you want in terms of your career statement, right? Yeah, Omar, no problem. So what do you want, right? Do you want work-life balance? Do you want short commute time? Do you want a lot of advancement opportunities? Do you want, like, a good balance of work in and work out and so on? Travis Lee, okay, sophomore. Yeah, okay. So if you are in that position, what I would say is figure out what you want to do first, because if you don't know what you want to do, any personal project that you build, yeah, you'll get experience from it, but how relevant is that experience, right? So at the end of the day, it depends on what you want to do before moving on. Reputable. What do you mean by reputable? But yeah, I mean, like, so any good so once again, like, we're going back to when you say, I'm assuming you're talking about reputable competitions or reputable projects, right? I think, yes, there is an aspect to reputation. However, one of the big problems with reputation is that a lot, like, once again, it focuses on the title of a position, a title of something, right? And nowadays, titles are worth nothing. I said this in this call as well. What is a director? Director of operations, director of marketing, right? A director of marketing at a company with company A with company B would be completely different things. So when right now you're a sophomore, so you don't really know what it's like when you actually start working. What happens is that you will but of course there's a people aspect. If you're in a toxic environment and it's like toxic AF, like, you want to get out, right? But at the same time, there are situations where if you're working and the skill you apply on a daily basis bores you to death, right? It doesn't put you in a state of flow. It's either too difficult or too boring, or you feel like you're wasting your talent, you're wasting your potential. Then those are situations you want to get out, right? And that's why don't really focus on the reputation. Don't focus on the title. Focus on the skills. What skill do you want to be doing on a daily basis, right? So in terms of happiness, right? And because we know one thing for science, right? And this is based on sound psychological studies that have been done on people looking at workplace satisfaction. People are happier. I mean, when you make around $80,000 in the Western world, you're gonna be okay in terms of your happiness. Any extra dollar is gonna be just incremental in terms of the satisfaction gained. So it depends on really what you want to do for your life, setting that objective, and then finding the right thing to fulfill that, right? And that is defined by skills rather than titles. So don't worry about reputation. Just focus on the skills that you're actually going to use, so that when you apply to a position and they're asking, hey, have you done this before? They're not going to ask you, hey, have you won this competition before, right? Because it doesn't mean squat. Unless it, like, you're an Olympian or you've won the Nobel Prize or something. It doesn't mean much. Because at the end of the day, these titles, these competitions are a sign that you have that skill. So you really just focus on having that skill and be able to market that skill. Yeah, Omar, great advice. Find co-op positions now or next year, work part-time with pay so that you may get a job offer by graduation development programs. Yeah, absolutely. Right? But get yourself in the right position. But like I said, focus on the destination in mind. And the destination will change, right? So, for example, Travis, right now you're a sophomore, you're in your 20s. You just began your 20s, I think. Assuming you follow a typical education progression. What happens is that, well, right now you're looking for an entry level position. You're trying to figure out your place in the working world, and so on. Right, trying to figure out adulting and so on. But what happens is, over time, what you want would change. So as you get older, you may think about marriage, right? You may think about or partnerships or whatever, right? And you might think about children. And at that point, your focus on your life would also change as well. What is the ideal career will change as well. Do you know any specific places to find co-op opportunities, or should I do a general search? Travis, you should check out I have a playlist on informational interviews for career exploration. I think it's called, I think the playlist is literally called Informational Interviews for Career Exploration. And what it's in there is basically teaches you how to network. And through those networking opportunities, what you do is you uncover co-op opportunities. Because at the end of the day, if you are, think about it this way, right? If there's an open position, an open posting for a co-op position, what's going to happen is you're going to have like anyone who sees it they're gonna apply for it. So let's think about kind of like a stadium, right? If you are in a stadium and there are, a Raptors game just ended, and then you're in a stadium and there's only like 3 exits that are open, right? And everyone's rushing to those exits, you're gonna have a hard time getting in. So what you should actually do is network your way into those positions, and it's good to do that early with informational interviewing, because informational interviewing, 1 month until 20, excited and scared. Awesome. Wow. I wish I was 1 month until 20. That's awesome, man. 20s is a very fun stage in life. Anyways, back to what I was saying about the stadium. If you are advancing in that stadium, if you're trying to get out of that stadium, and it's kind of like any co-op position, everyone applying for it, like it's going to make it tough to get that position. Therefore, the best way to do it is just informational interview your way into it. Find that position through networking, and that's where the really good stuff happens. Because once you build that relationship through the information networking, perhaps you talk to like 3 companies, and only one of them decides to hire you, right, as a co-op, bring you in as a co-op student. What happens is that after you're done that experience, because you've built that relationship with other people in other companies, what happens is you can reach out the following year or the following term and find opportunities there. It's like, hey, it didn't work out last time, but I'm on the market again, looking for a co-op position. You guys got anything, right? That's where you can reach out to them, and that's where you really build that momentum. And in terms as being, even for as a student, because over time these networks, they will grow as well. They will advance in their careers, and that relationship will only build over time, right? Like if you build a relationship, not build over time. Like they will keep that connection, so that wherever they go, you can always get in touch with them at some point in time in your life, because you've made this effort to connect with people. And that's why networking is so important. Now, I gotta be very clear though, when you're networking, a lot of people feel like, it's slimy, right? Anybody think that networking is slimy? Let me know in the comments, right? But networking can feel slimy, but it's only slimy because networking is only slimy when you have an ask. When you're there asking people for something. But if you are not asking people for anything, then you're only there to just do career exploration. That's why I put it in my career exploration playlist. I don't put it in my how to land a job playlist, because I don't think informational interviews to how to land a job is the right thing to do. And what I'm hearing a lot from my recruiting friends in the tech industry, they're telling me yo, these guys on LinkedIn are getting bombarded with informational interview requests, and it's and networking requests to pick their brain, right? It's getting so saturated that you don't want to do that anymore. However, for career exploration, it's still very doable. Check out associations. Associations are a great way to learn more about a career as well. The big exclusive. Hey John, any advice about switching career paths in early 30s? I worked in freelance video production for 10 years straight out of college, but this industry is not stable. I would like to go into IT work. So literally what I just said. The informational interviews is the best way to do it. Set a target first, right? Have a career statement. I've talked about career statements in my past videos, in my past lives. But pretty much is, what do you want in your career? What do you want in your life? And how do you make your career work with that? Afterwards, you move on, and then you Afterwards, you move on, and then you set a target, and then based on that target, you network with people in that industry of like a position that's similar to what you want to go for. And based on that, you reverse engineer a process on how you can be the best fit for that, and then just work towards that, because they're going to give you the roadmap on how to get that position, right? But it's important to network. And when I say, and don't network like in a slimy way, like I just told you, like try to bring value to the conversation because they want to build their networks too. At the same time, when you're networking, don't send like 2 messages on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever, or emails, and it's like, oh, you know, I gave it a try and the person never replied me, like, and you'll get your feelings hurt. Like the cold messaging network approach is, the success rate is 10%. Like seriously, if you send 10 emails, you might get 1 reply. You might get 1 reply. If you send 10 connection requests on LinkedIn, you might get 1, right? So that's why you gotta send, like literally send 50, send 100. And what happens is you will get replies from them, and then that's where you can start having these conversations. And also, another major benefit of doing 50 or 100 is that you really, how should I say it? You'll lose count, and your feelings won't be hurt, because like you're not like relying on one uncontrollable variable, like whether that person wants to reply to you or not. Like you're playing the numbers, you're playing the odds. You know, if you message 50 people, maybe 5 will reply back, right? And that's where you reach out to figure out what you should do to make that transition, and what are the qualifications you're looking for, what openings are there that's going to be coming up in the near future, what skills are they looking for, and what certifications if necessary, right? And so these are all the things that you should be doing while you're looking to make a career switch in your early 30s. Now 30s is a point in life where the job hopping has to stop. Where there's the stigma of the job hopping is like, you know, really gonna start building up. So don't worry about if you by the way, if you guys like this advice, just drop it in, you know, give me a like, please. Really appreciate it. You know, please, the YouTube gods, right? But basically, when you're making this informational interview process, just figure out, get the roadmap, and go from there. I hope that answers the question. Feel free to ask more. Always glad to answer questions. I can share search terms to you since I'm only familiar with companies in my state, right? Development program, search for rotational, also those related to role that expose you to different departments also. Yep, good advice. Yeah, if you're at a stage where you're a student, you still have like several years of wiggle room to figure it out, and even after that, if you decide to enter the job market, I mean not if you decide, when you enter the job market, what happens is you'll probably be hopping around for a little while, build that experience. Like the stats show that the female job hopping rate is around 46%. The male job hopping rate is around like in the high 30s. So job hopping is very normal. Don't feel ashamed about it. It's actually the quickest way to get your pay up to the market rate. So a lot of times when you first enter, if you're in the best position to apply for a job, like what happens is you would probably take the first job available to you, right? That's just typically, unless you get multiple offers, then you're in a good position. But most people, they typically take the first job available. What happens after that? You take the first job available is that, well, you don't know if that job is going to turn out well or not. If it turns out well, awesome, right? If it doesn't turn out well, then you really get into the habit of what a lot of people end up doing is they switch to something else. Oh, it's not a fit, switch to something else. Oh, it's not a fit, switch to something else. Over the course of 4 to 5 years, your 20s will go by really fast, right? By the time you hit your late 20s, what happens? You're questioning like, hey, is it me? Is it the workplace? Is it the people I've met? Is it just bad luck, right? Or is it just me? Like, is it really me, right? And then that's when you start questioning like, am I the problem? And that's why like job hopping is really tough. Like it's a real problem that people face, but it's actually very normal in your 20s. If you're to job hop for a good reason. Hop for the opportunity to build skills. Never hop for the money. Okay, I shouldn't say never hop for the money, right? Unless you're getting paid. Like there are always times where if you're paid crap, you should hop for the money, or if you need to make ends meet, you hop for the money, right? But if there's the opportunity versus the money, always go for the opportunity, because if you're in your 20s, having the opportunity to work on a big project is gonna pay off like in the bundles, like when you get a little older. It's like, yeah, I worked on this project in my back in the day, and that really helps as well over time. If you guys got any questions, feel free to drop in the comment box below. I'm starting to get, my mouth's getting dry. I've talked for an hour straight now. I love this though. I hope I'm providing value for you guys as well in terms of career advice and so on. Always glad to help. But and the statistics also show that when you're in your 20s, people, yeah, they don't like job hopping. There's that stigma, but it's kind of expected, and the damage isn't that high because it's usually for an entry level position. But once you hit your 30s, the research shows that 40 something percent of the hiring managers do not like job hopping, because what happens is, well, job hopping is, is like, well, you're in your 30s, right? You should stop job hopping. But the reality is, well, a lot of times, like the workplace, there's a lot of variables that just make your life miserable. People don't want to job hop. Like, there are people who job hop on purpose, but for the most part, people don't like it. Thanks for the advice, John. What were you talking about the early 30s job hopping stigma before you got sidetracked? Well, people look at me poorly if I change fields now. I've been in video for 10 years. Okay. This is one of the big limiting beliefs that a lot of people have about their career, right? They feel like if I job hop, if I switch my career, I'm going to lose everything I've ever built. And that's simply not true. A lot of people change their careers in their 30s and 40s and so on. I know I haven't created a video about the golden handcuffs. So you will not be looked poorly upon if you switch careers. However, you want to bring as many transferable skills as possible, and that's defined as hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills, just reading your description, hard skills would definitely be video editing. It will be organizing your files. It would be maybe even some digital marketing stuff for creating content, and so on. So you want to focus on like bringing those hard skills and selling those hard skills in a different industry, right? In a different career. Soft skills could be time management, project management, people management, communication, creativity, and so on, right? So these would all be things that you want to bring in your new career. And so if you're bringing that into your new career, that will be people would appreciate that. And that's why don't feel bad about making a career switch in your 30s, because it's still normal. It's still normal. There's a stigma to it, but a lot of people do it. And in fact, a lot of people don't have stable careers until their 40s, right? I have a client right now who's really finally is sick of all the job hopping and decided to reach out to me and hey, I want to stop job hopping. I want to find something I'm really good at and just double down on it, and really make that my career. And that's what we're working towards, right? So it's definitely very normal. Don't feel bad about it. Just really make sure you do the information interviews, you look at the job descriptions and look at the skills that are transferable. And also the naming is very important. The language, right? So, for example, I come from education. Some people would say in education, I would say I plan curriculum, I develop curriculum, and I teach, right? Well, if you are moving to a corporate environment, what you want to do is change the language. You don't want to call it curriculum development. You want to call it training, right? Training development. And just changing those words would make it so much easier for the hiring manager as they're reviewing the resume to this is what I'm looking for, and so on. Do you know a good e-com mastermind community to join? I was thinking of joining Impact Theory University by Tom Bilyeu. Of course, I know Tom Bilyeu. Do you recommend getting a one-on-one e-com coach? Ahmed, I would say e-com, if how should I say it? definitely very doable as a career. I don't know whether it's like Tom Bilyeu is the one to do it. I feel Tom Bilyeu is more like a mindset coach. Like the stuff that he's selling right now seems to be very much like mindset. He's talked to all the great minds, and that's why the university is, he teaches like the mindset stuff and how to be successful as an entrepreneur and so on. But I actually wouldn't recommend doing that. I would actually find someone who has a proven program, who could you could actually follow, and just like get the whole system from that person. Like if they sell a system that will constantly generate revenue, that's what you want to do, right? But at the same time, how do you know whether it's really worth it or not? I remember like just not long ago. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. I keep like rubbing it. Not long ago, wasn't there's this person that was exposed as like a faker, Asian name, Chinese name actually, and like in the ecom world where like several YouTubers just just told like exposed how he was just like a big fraud in the ecom world, right? Actually, you know what? One of my friends bought his program, and yeah, like he made a little bit of money, but it's tough, man. So I'd say just be very careful. Really find a proof of product and see if you can talk to real life people who have made money off of them. Don't just look at the testimonials, because testimonials, yeah, they're great, but at the end of the day, you want to talk to real people. If you can go back in time and change one thing about your career journey, what would it be, right? Are you asking me personally? Personally, if I'm to go back in time, I don't have any regrets in particular. Yeah, actually, I don't have. Let's see. I would have preferred to start. I mean, if I'm to go back, so my progression was I started out as a teacher, history and social science teacher, taught IB, and then after 5 years of doing that, I moved on to education. I got my first education degree at Penn, and then I moved on to Oxford to get my PhD in sociology, and I've wrapped it up for I think we're entering 2 years now. But what happened? So if I'm to look at that, I don't think there's anything I particularly regret, because the career I made progress. I could go back to education anytime I want, because I did really well there. And then the sociology degree, it's so transferable, and it's Oxford, and it's like nothing I'm gonna regret. When I'm on my deathbed, it's not like I'm gonna regret going to Oxford for my PhD. So I don't have any regrets there. The only regret I would have is like not hopping on to building my personal brand earlier. Whether it's like going on YouTube and so on. So like one thing in education, like when I was like back in 2010, I got certified as an Apple Distinguished Educator. I can actually like there's a thing here where like I was recently sent an Apple Distinguished Educator poster, which is like it's like people for Apple who like do education stuff, right? So they sent this to me. There's only like supposed to be like 1,000 1,000 of us, actually probably 2,000 of us in the world now, who focus really on education. And they even at that time they were talking about like start your YouTube channel, start building your social media, start your career branding. That was in 2010, so that was like before YouTube really started like really blowing up, right? So my only regret is not building my personal brand earlier. And this is one recommendation I would make for everybody on this session right now is like build your personal brand, build it early, and find an evergreen place, which would mean like get a online like either as a blog or YouTube, right? Or a podcast, because those are like very much more firm and established platforms that you don't need to constantly feed the monster. Yes, you need to feed the monster at the beginning, right? You need to pump out those videos, or you need to make those blog entries, you need to make those podcast episodes early. But what happens is they're searchable for perpetuity, right? Forever. Meanwhile, you have stuff like Instagram where, yeah, you build 1 million followers on Instagram, but you got to keep feeding that monster. You got to keep generating content, right? And what happens over time is like, well, your personal brand over time, if you don't keep feeding it, it will depreciate. Same thing for TikTok, right? Now it's fast food, like it's instant access, it's instant gratification, and so on. So there's a lot of good stuff going there. You can build your brand there. But for the long run, what I think is here to stay are blogs. I think YouTube is here to stay, and I think podcasts are here to stay. So that's one thing I would say: like build your brand and build your brand early. You can use it to market a whole bunch of stuff in the future, whether it's in your career. And a lot of people are like, "Yeah, John, why are you talking about social media branding on a career thing?" Well, let me tell you this right now. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, right? And people who are on LinkedIn, if you have a good, LinkedIn is pretty solid as well, by the way, because it's like you only have one shot. If you mess up on LinkedIn, you get kicked out and you don't get back in, right? But people who are on LinkedIn, one thing is if you have like a YouTube video, a YouTube channel, and you're like 10,000 people, 20,000 people, or whatever, right? You go on LinkedIn, you say something, people will look you up, and then they see you have like that clout. And like a lot of times you're saying, people are like, oh, are you pursuing clout? It's like, no, you are pursuing, you are speaking your brand. There are going to be people who are going to resonate with you. There are going to be people who don't resonate with you. And what happens over time is, it snowballs. And in the future, if you're deciding to, make a switch to another career or make a pivot or adjust your message. So for example, right now I do career coaching, right? For career clarity specifically, I help people figure out, take them and find their dream careers, in terms of finding what's that direction. But in the future, if I decide to like, I don't this coaching thing, I like it, but I think it's time for a change. You could always take it and make it into something else. Like if I want to be like a speaking business, right? There's a lot of professional speakers out there. Well, there's that as well. So there are a lot of things that you can do once you've created your online brand and your personal branding. And that's if I'm to give like one major advice is get that clarity, know what you want to do, but build that brand as well. Because that brand will always stick with you for the rest of your life. And that's a major advantage that you're going to have over anybody else, right? So if you're into video editing, right? So if the big exclusive, I don't know what your name is, but if you're into video editing and you put your video editing stuff online and people look at it, it opens so many doors because people are always going to look for video editors, right? I don't think AI and automation are going to replace that anytime soon. No, I don't want to say anytime soon, but because they are coming, but the robots are coming, but they're not going to totally replace like a video editor because you still need creativity behind it. If you put your stuff online and you just let that portfolio roll over time, like you put it there, like I have a video of me talking about the World War II, causes of World War II in China. And that was done a decade ago. Yeah, it's almost been 10 years now. It's got like 8,000 views, right? It cost me nothing. It costs you nothing, right? If you just put up your video, but that builds your brand over time, right? So look for things that will snowball and give you that longevity rather than look for the next latest and greatest things. Because if you're chasing all the time, if you're chasing things all the time, what that means is you're not grounded, you're not gonna feel centered, you're gonna feel insecure, and you gotta restart at a new place. So I know a lot of people who like jump between like social media platforms to build their brand, and what happens is over time you get lost in the shuffle. What is the best way to build a good, trustworthy brand, right? And let's talk about career branding. The best way to build it is just to speak your truth. Seriously, just speak your truth. There are those who are going to resonate with you. There are those who will not resonate with you. Either way, it's good to speak your truth, because whether they like you or not, it's gonna create, people who like you, they'll resonate with you, right? They'll side with you, they'll subscribe, they'll whatever. If they dislike you, you'll have people who resonate with you will come to your defense. And I'm on LinkedIn, like I said, and sometimes I make posts on LinkedIn, whereas I mentioned like the hidden job market, and then someone came at me saying it's not a real thing, and I'm like, oh no, it's real, and this based on my research, it's real, but we need to take the context of it, and we got into an argument. Some people sided with me, some people sided with her, and it's all good, right? It's a good conversation, and it's a connection because you actually had a real engagement. when you see other people like posting platitudes and posting like just things that everyone else is posting, what happens is you become like everyone else. You don't have a brand, and your brand is everyone else. And what happens is, you're not like, it's like people don't care because there's no emotional involvement. That's why you see a lot of people like like the people who are like, who really blow up online. They're so polarizing, because they generate a lot of conflict, and people who side of them or people who don't side of them, and so on. That's like Donald Trump would be an example. I don't want to say Trump, like Trump, Obama, they're both polarizing in their own respects, right? But that's how they build their brand. Same thing for Bill Gates, same thing for Steve Jobs, same thing for Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk isn't that agreeable. Like he says his stuff. Like you follow him on Twitter, man, he says he's a flame starter, right? So that's why like your brand, as long as people know you speak your truth, you're going to be trustworthy, because at least they know what they're getting. But if you are lying and you're not speaking your truth, what happens is no one knows who you really are, right? And so that's my advice about building a good online brand. All right, guys, I've been on. Okay, last question, the big exclusive, last question. Because I've been on this for like an hour and 20 minutes now. My voice is getting tired. Give me a like, guys, and subscribe to the channel if you like what I'm about. I'm all about giving career advice. Focus on clarity. I don't care how good your resume is. If it gets you in a crappy job that makes you miserable, don't write that resume, right? It's all about clarity. Know what you want and go get it. All right. How can an online video portfolio help me when it comes to shifting into an alternate career? For example, if I want to go into IT from video, do IT hiring managers even care about my video brand? Well, it helps because it shows that you've done work in the past, you've done work, and you've gained credibility. You have street cred, right? And it shows you have a portfolio. Even when you move on to another career path like IT, who knows what skills they're gonna need in the future, right? What if they want someone to do video in IT, right? Video in their IT company, or there's opportunities that open up inside that gives that stability while you're able to keep pursuing what you want to do. If people ask you, thanks, Ahmed, I appreciate it. If people ask you like, oh, like you have a bunch of videos online and they're very well done. I mean, are you still doing that as your full-time thing? Just tell them, oh no, this is my past. I just like I love sharing what I like, the creative stuff that I do. I still do on the side because it's a hobby of mine, but I no longer do this like for a full-time thing. I'm fully committed to your company, right? That's what they want to hear. It's not gonna. So as long as you're able to explain that it's, because everyone's got a past, right? And as long as you're able to explain about how it works with your trajectory, like you want that stability, you want that 9 to 5, you want that steady paycheck, you don't want to live paycheck by paycheck, just tell them like, yeah, it's something that I did in my youth, in my 20s, but now I'm ready for something more stable. I still do it on the side because I love video editing. It's always going to be part of who I am, but I'm now ready for this opportunity, right? That's how you explain away. At the same time, right? If you're not like a YouTube, like if you're not like a YouTuber or like like a YouTube channel specifically focused on video, and who knows what opportunities may arise, by the way, if you create a channel specifically on like video editing or whatever, right? But what happens is you can create a video channel, like you can create a channel on YouTube where you just basically let it evolve with you, right? My channel is mostly focused on career stuff, like at the very top, I put mostly career stuff, but at the bottom, I talk a lot about my own experience, my own reflections on my graduation at Penn. I made a Mulan video that had like 50,000 views. That's like my top video. It's not even what my channel is about, but I talk about personality. I talk about soft skills. I talk about sociology and analysis there. I mean, I got a PhD in sociology, so that's why I'm doing it, right? So, so that's basically what I would say is like, just build your brand, speak your truth, don't worry about it. There's always a way to justify it, all right? Hope this session was great, guys. Thanks for asking questions. I always love and I seriously appreciate it. I really hate the days when I was like just doing lives and like no one would show up. It's just miserable. But I appreciate you guys showing up and having a conversation. I hope I could, bring more value to you guys in the future. And I basically do lives every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So basically at this time. And if you want free resources, a free personality test in the details below using the big 5 personality traits. I also have a guide. I also have a free training. Everything's down there. Just take a look. All right. Playlists on informational interviews. Playlists on resumes, and playlists on career clarity and Crossroads. A lot of stuff that could help you guys. Yeah. So I'm here next week. I'll see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.